Ladies and gentlemen, there is a woman standing in the middle of this world, unshaken, undistracted, and unapologetically herself. She walks through life without the constant need for validation, without the whispers of sweet nothings to define her worth, without a hand to hold that makes society nod in approval, and for some reason that makes the world uncomfortable. They ask, why doesn't she have someone? They assume maybe she's lonely. They speculate maybe something is wrong with her. But let me tell you what they fail to see. This woman is not alone. She is not lacking. She is not waiting. She is living. She is growing. She is thriving in a world that tries to convince her she is incomplete. There is a kind of power in being whole on your own, in standing so firmly in who you are that the absence of someone else does not shake you. The moment you realize that you are not a half looking for completion, but a force of your own, everything changes. You stop chasing, you stop waiting, you stop begging for the attention of someone who cannot see the brilliance of your presence. And ironically, that is the very moment they start to feel your absence like a missing heartbeat. A man doesn't miss a woman who is always there, readily available, adjusting, shrinking herself to fit into the empty spaces of his life. He misses the woman who is full of purpose, full of passion, full of a life so rich and vibrant that being with her feels like stepping into something extraordinary. When you become that woman, when you reclaim your power and shift your focus back to yourself, he will feel the void of your absence, like an ache that won't fade. It's not about games. It's not about manipulation. It's about energy. The energy of a woman who is no longer waiting, a woman who wakes up every day choosing herself, pouring into her dreams, surrounding herself with things that set her soul on fire. That kind of woman is unforgettable. She lingers in the mind long after she's walked away because she was never desperate to stay. She was there by choice, and when she leaves, her absence speaks louder than any words ever could. If you want to rewire a man's mind to miss you, don't beg for his attention, withdraw yours. Not in anger, not in a dramatic display, but in quiet certainty that your worth is not up for negotiation. Go live the life you once put on hold. Go become the version of yourself that even you can't take your eyes off. And watch as the absence of your presence turns into the loudest silence he has ever known. The world has a way of making a woman feel like she must always be available, always giving, always proving her worth. Society whispers that if she isn't constantly present in his life, he will forget her. But that is the biggest lie ever told. The truth, a man does not miss what is always within reach. He misses what he once took for granted, but can no longer have so easily. He misses what had presence, energy, and depth, but now feels like an empty space he cannot fill. When you are constantly checking in, adjusting your life around his, or making sure he never has a moment to forget you, you are not being remembered. You are being taken for granted. People don't crave what is easily accessible. They crave what has weight, what has meaning, what had light and warmth, but is now missing. The moment you stop proving your worth and start owning it, something shifts, the energy changes. Instead of him feeling like he has you no matter what, he begins to wonder what happened, why the texts have slowed, why the energy feels different, why the woman who once revolved around him now seems to be in an entirely different orbit. A woman who knows her value does not chase. She does not remind someone of her presence. She allows her absence to do the talking. She does not beg to be noticed. She becomes so deeply immersed in her own growth, happiness, and power that her distance is felt like a missing piece. He will notice when your energy is no longer wrapped around him. He will notice when the woman who once gave him everything has shifted her focus back to herself. That is when the rewiring begins. Not through force, not through manipulation, but through the undeniable truth that something rare has been lost. And when a man realizes he had something irreplaceable, that's when he starts to miss it like crazy. A woman who defines herself by her own purpose is the kind of woman who leaves an imprint on the soul. She does not live to be someone's option. She lives to be her own masterpiece. When a woman stops seeking validation from a man and starts seeking fulfillment from within, something shifts. Not just in her, but in him. Because suddenly she is no longer predictable. She is no longer the woman waiting in the same place, giving the same energy, asking the same question. She is becoming something greater, and that is what he will miss. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who is deeply rooted in her own journey when she wakes up in the morning with a fire in her heart that has nothing to do with him. When she pours herself into her ambitions, when she becomes the kind of person who is so in love with her own life that her happiness does not depend on his attention, that is when she becomes unforgettable. Men are wired to crave what they cannot fully possess. When a woman places her identity in him, he feels it, and slowly she becomes ordinary in his eyes. But when she walks with purpose, when she builds a life that is meaningful with or without him, she shifts from ordinary to extraordinary. He begins to wonder what she's doing, who she's becoming, why she no longer needs his validation. That curiosity, that feeling of I might be losing something rare is what rewires his mind. She does not need to play games. She does not need to act like someone she's not. She only needs to stand in her truth, to be a force of nature, to live a life so full that anyone who steps away from it feels the emptiness in their own. And that is how he begins to miss her. Not just as a person, but as an experience he can never quite replace. A woman who refuses to settle is a woman who becomes unforgettable. She is not the one bending, shrinking, or breaking herself just to fit into someone else's life. She is the one who knows exactly what she deserves, and she will not accept anything less. And that, more than anything, is what makes a man miss her when she is gone. There is a difference between being wanted and being valued. Many men want a woman simply because she is there, because she is convenient, because she gives endlessly, because she asks for little in return. But the moment a woman sets a standard, the moment she makes it clear that she will not tolerate half-hearted love, she shifts the dynamic. She goes from being an option to being a privilege. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, a man begins to realize that what he had with you was not ordinary. It was not something he could replace with just anyone. Because the truth is, people do not value what comes too easily. They value what they had to rise to meet, what made them better, what challenged them to grow. And when you stop settling for the bare minimum, you force him to confront the reality of what he has lost. This is not about playing hard to get. It is about being hard to get, not because of arrogance, but because of self-respect. A woman who knows her worth does not wait for a man to figure out how to love her properly. She walks away when she is not valued, and in doing so, she teaches him a lesson he will never forget. One day he will look around and realize that no one else carries themselves like she did. No one else made him want to be better in the way that she did. No one else had the strength to walk away like she did. And in that moment, he will not just miss her, he will regret losing her. And that, more than anything, is what rewires his mind. A woman who is comfortable in her own company holds a power that is both rare and intoxicating. She does not fear silence. She does not seek distractions. She does not beg for someone to fill a space in her life that she has already filled with purpose, passion, and self-love. And that, more than anything, makes her unforgettable. Men are wired to believe that a woman needs them to feel complete. They expect to be the center of her world, the reason for her happiness, the anchor that holds her steady. But when a woman stands on her own, when she radiates confidence in her solitude, it shakes that belief to its core. Because suddenly she is not desperate for his attention, she is not chasing his validation, she is simply living a life so rich, so fulfilling, that her absence will be felt like a missing heartbeat. He will begin to wonder why she isn't reaching out, why she isn't asking for his time, why she isn't lingering in the background, waiting to be noticed. And in that wondering, a shift happens. The one who was once taken for granted becomes the one he cannot stop thinking about. The one who was always available becomes the one he now has to figure out how to reach. This is not about making him jealous. This is not about manipulation. This is about reclaiming the energy that was once given away so freely. It is about realizing that a woman who is content in her own presence, who enjoys her own growth, who is so deeply in love with herself and her journey, that is the woman who leaves an imprint on a man's mind. Because she was never dependent on him. She was never just waiting around. And when she walked away, she didn't leave with sadness, she left with purpose. A woman like that does not fade into the background. She does not become a forgotten chapter. She becomes the story that lingers, the presence that haunts, the love that he will spend a lifetime trying to replace but never truly will. Love at its core should never be about filling a void. It should be about amplifying the wholeness that already exists within you. The most powerful love stories are not written by those who chase or beg for affection, but by those who choose each other from a place of abundance, not need. And that is where the real magic happens. When a woman stops needing a man and starts choosing herself first, she becomes unforgettable. A man does not truly miss a woman who clings to him, who anxiously waits for his messages, who centers her world around him. He misses the woman who has a life so full, so beautiful, that her love felt like a privilege, not a lifeline. She was never his. She was herself, and that's what made her irreplaceable. When she loved, it was never out of desperation, but out of pure, unshakable self-worth. And when that kind of woman walks away, her absence is not just noticed, it is felt. He will realize it in the quiet moments, in the spaces where her laughter used to be, in the moments he reaches for his phone only to remember she no longer waits for him. He will feel it when he sees her glowing, not because of him, but despite him. A woman who is whole on her own leaves a different kind of mark. She doesn't just disappear from a man's life, she becomes the standard against which all others are measured. She does not love from a place of fear. She does not stay because she is afraid of losing him. She stays only if she is valued. And when she feels taken for granted, she does not scream, cry, or beg. She simply steps back, knowing that the right love will never require her to diminish herself. She lets him feel her absence, not as punishment, but as proof that she was never waiting to be chosen. She was simply offering the best of herself to someone worthy. And in time, when he realizes what he lost, when he sees that she was never the one who needed him, but rather the one who elevated him, that is when his mind rewires. That is when she stops being just another memory and becomes the one he will always, always wonder about. There is an undeniable power in knowing that you are already whole. When a woman understands that she is not waiting to be completed, not searching for someone to validate her existence, not bending herself to fit into someone else's life, she becomes magnetic. She becomes the kind of woman whose absence is not just noticed, it is felt in the deepest corners of a man's mind. A man does not miss a woman who is always available, always giving, always proving her worth. He misses the woman who stands so fully in her own power that she does not need to convince anyone of her value. She is not waiting by the phone. She is not checking for his attention. She is too busy living, evolving, and becoming the best version of herself. And that is what makes her unforgettable. When a woman knows that she is enough, she shifts the energy of every room she walks into. She does not beg for love, she embodies it. She does not plead for commitment, she inspires it. And when she steps away, she does so with the kind of grace that leaves a lasting imprint. Because it is never the woman who chases that is missed. It is the one who moves forward, carrying herself with a quiet confidence that whispers, "I was only ever mine to give." A man will start to miss a woman the moment she stops needing him. Not because she is playing games, not because she is punishing him, but because she has shifted her focus back to where it always should have been, on herself. The moment she realizes that her happiness, her peace, and her fulfillment were never meant to be dependent on him, she steps into a power that is undeniable. And that is when he feels the shift. That is when he begins to wonder. That is when his mind rewires. Not because she forced him to miss her, but because she reminded him through her absence of what he once had and will never quite replace. The world is not used to a woman who stands alone, unshaken, unapologetic in her power. People are comfortable with the idea of a woman who waits, who adjusts, who softens herself to fit into a man's life. But the moment she chooses herself first, the moment she refuses to settle for anything less than what she deserves, she becomes a force that is both admired and feared. A woman who is strong, independent, and content within herself makes others uncomfortable, not because there is anything wrong with her, but because she challenges the norm. She does not beg to be seen. She does not fight for a seat at a table that does not respect her presence. She walks away, knowing that she is the prize. And that is when the game changes. That is when he begins to feel her absence, not just as a temporary loss, but as a void that lingers. Men do not truly miss what they take for granted. They miss what they can no longer reach. What they once thought would always be there, but now stands untouchable, out of reach, thriving in ways they never expected. When a woman stops trying to prove her worth and simply is, when she no longer overextends herself to be chosen, when she builds a life that is so full that her happiness does not rely on his presence, that is when he starts to feel it. He will feel it in the spaces where she used to be, in the laughter that no longer fills his days, in the quiet moments when he realizes she was never just another woman. She was an experience, a presence, a light. And now she's a light that shines elsewhere. She does not need to prove a point. She does not need to play a role. She simply needs to keep being exactly who she is, unapologetically strong, fiercely independent, and beautifully unattainable to anyone who does not deserve her. And in doing so, she does not just make him miss her, she makes him realize her. And that is a feeling he will never quite be able to escape. A woman who knows how to walk away with grace holds a kind of power that is unmatched. She does not beg for closure. She does not chase explanations. She does not linger where she is no longer valued. Instead, she chooses herself completely, unapologetically, and without hesitation. And that is when her absence becomes the loudest thing in the room. A man does not truly miss a woman when she is still available, still holding on, still hoping he will realize her worth. He misses her when she stops trying, when she stops waiting, when she stops making excuses for his inconsistency. He misses her when she no longer reacts, when she no longer gives him the power to disrupt her peace, when she walks away with a quiet certainty that she deserves more. There is no greater lesson than loss. When a woman leaves with dignity, without drama, without bitterness, only self-respect, she becomes unforgettable, because she was not waiting to be chosen. She was offering something rare, something valuable, something irreplaceable. And when she steps away, she does not do so to teach a lesson. She does so because she has finally learned her own. It is in that space of silence, in that void where she once poured her love, that he begins to feel the weight of what he took for granted. He wonders where she went, why she isn't reaching out, why her energy has shifted. He starts to see her not as someone who was always there, but as someone who chose to be there. And now she is choosing herself instead. This is not about revenge. This is not about making him suffer. This is about stepping into your own power so fully that your absence speaks louder than words ever could. Because the truth is, a woman who knows her worth does not lose a man, he loses her. And when he realizes that, when he sees her thriving in her own light, he will not just miss her, he will wish he had valued her before she walked away. But by then she will already be gone. The most powerful transformation a woman can undergo is the moment she realizes that she was never meant to be someone's afterthought. She was never meant to beg for love, to shrink herself for attention, or to exhaust her energy proving her worth. She was meant to stand tall in her own radiance, to embrace her power without hesitation, and to live a life that is so full, so abundant, that her presence feels like a privilege, not a convenience. A man does not miss a woman because she forces him to. He does not miss her because she plays games or follows a set of rules to manipulate his emotions. He misses her when he realizes that she was never something to be owned. She was a rare experience, a force of nature, a love that made him better. And once she is gone, once she reclaims her energy and pours it back into herself, he begins to see what he once overlooked. This is not about revenge. This is not about proving a point. This is about choosing yourself so completely that anyone who took you for granted feels the absence of your warmth, your kindness, your energy. It is about becoming so immersed in your own growth that you no longer need anyone to validate your worth. It is about understanding that the moment you stop chasing, stop overgiving, stop placing your happiness in someone else's hands, you step into a version of yourself that is unstoppable. And that is when everything shifts. That is when he begins to feel the loss, not just of a woman, but of something rare, something irreplaceable. He will wonder why your energy no longer lingers, why your presence no longer fills the spaces around him, why his world feels just a little less bright. And in that realization, in that longing, he will finally understand what he had. But by then you will no longer be waiting. You will have already become something far greater than what he ever imagined. Because the truth is, a woman who knows her worth is never truly lost. She simply becomes the one he will never forget.